so much, Vanessa, and thank you everyone for taking the time out of your day to join us for this presentation. So let me share this with you all. I hope that you can all see that. So do shout if you can't, but I will start presenting otherwise. So yes, welcome to this presentation on transforming volunteering diversity through a vision-driven approach. I know it's a bit of a mouthful, so don't worry, Vanessa, even I can't pronounce it on the best days. So we'll be covering a range of topics, mostly a background to who we are and our vision, as well as some of the challenges and solutions that I've implemented in terms of improving our diversity. So to introduce who we are, Richmond Art Service is the local authority art service for the borough of Richmond. And yes, we cover arts in the community across the entire borough. We're fortunate enough to have the lovely building that is Orleans House Gallery in our care. We have a grade 1 listed octagon room, as well as 2 exhibition spaces. We've got a brand new building as well as part of some works that we did recently, which I'll cover in a bit. And a beautiful collection as well. So yeah, we have a range of spaces that we use for exhibitions, weddings, events, activities, all kinds of things. So the important part of our presentation is this vision that we've developed. The 6 points that I'll be covering were developed alongside our 10-year cultural strategy for the borough, which is led by our mission statement, which is to build community through creativity, which I think really captures our approach clearly and effectively. And it's a really nice way to kind of describe the work that we do. So as I say, the vision is broken down into 6 points. They're a lot longer. I've kind of condensed them down, so apologies for the amount of text, but I'll just go through them quickly, which is develop an ambitious arts program to be a catalyst for local artistic responses to global challenges, nurturing well-being and lifelong love of the arts, including volunteering, facilitating a diverse and resilient arts ecology in the borough, managing our resources effectively, and developing in a sustainable way. So you can see there's a lot of things that we're covering, really important to the community, as well as the society at large. But really one of the key aspects was making sure that the volunteer programme had buy-in from our senior management team, as well as other leadership within the service, the director and the council. And it's really clear here, you can see that volunteering is a key part of this vision, which I'm really pleased because it helps drive the work through a lot more easily. Sorry about that, I seem to have scrolled. Also, what's really key in terms of this vision is the collaboration between 3 groups of people: our volunteers, the visitors in our community, as well as the artists that we work with. And it's really important that everything that we do has those 3 groups in mind. So just to give you a little bit more of a background to our vision, we went through a service restructure in 2019. So we had new members of the team join us, as well as existing staff move on to new roles, as well as existing roles. And that happened at the end of 2019, ready and raring to go into 2020, and then the pandemic hit. But actually, we were really fortunate that it allowed us to kind of take a step back from what we'd been doing previously and really evaluate what we wanted to do with what we'd done previously, as well as carrying that forward. And out of those conversations, the work that we did, we decided to shift towards a contemporary arts focus, away from the heritage focus that we've been doing pretty much for the last 50 years. So before I move on to the challenges that we faced and some of the approaches that I took, I'd like to actually just discuss about the approaches in general. We've all been to workshops and training that teaches us about best practice and how to be an effective volunteer manager and how to get the most out of our volunteers. And for me, I always come away going, how will I apply that to my organisation? And we always think there's going to be one solution that works. Realistically, as I've learned throughout this process, that actually there's no one-size-fits-all approach to an organisation. It has to be bespoke and unique to the organisations and the volunteers that we work with. And so unfortunately, there is no magic bullet. So if you were here hoping to hear that, feel free to leave. I'm sorry about that, but I hope that actually what you'll take away from this presentation is that there are a lot of simple changes that we can make that add up to a big change, rather than there being one approach that we can take. So hopefully as we go through these, you'll be inspired and be able to see some of those things in your own organisation that you can do. So to cover some of the challenges we face, I've broken them down into 5 key areas. First of all is the transition to a new direction. We reopened in 2018 after a £3.7 million Heritage Lottery Fund capital works project, which restored the Octagon Room as well as rebuilt one of the wings coming off it. And so we had that very much heritage focus with our volunteers that had been recruited throughout that project, as well as the work that we did previously. So what was key for me was, how do we take those existing volunteers on the dreaded J word, the journey with us? How do we carry them through and tap into the interest that they came with us in terms of heritage, but apply that to a new focus? In addition to that, obviously, I've mentioned the pandemic. Decreasing volunteer numbers was a big thing for us. COVID really had an impact on our volunteers because a lot of them decided to move on to do other things, spend more time with family and friends, understandably so, which meant that we had less of a reliable pool of volunteers, and especially those that had been with us for some time. We had a very traditional demographic of volunteer, so we were heavily reliant on that group to be able to cover our roster. And so a key challenge for me was, how do we ensure that we maintain that level of continuity and that coverage, but with a wider pool of people and not being so reliant on our existing volunteers? And also that change in direction, even though we want to take volunteers on that journey with us, realistically, we weren't going to be able to keep everyone with us. They weren't going to have that interest necessarily. So how can we ensure that we don't lose too many people from it? Another challenge was communication and engagement. With that change in staff and the shift to a new direction, there was a lot of information to pass on and a lot of training and upskilling to get people familiar with contemporary arts and the work that we were doing. So I wanted to see how we could do that. It's also introducing those new volunteers into the fold, making sure that we meshed in our existing volunteers with the new volunteers that were coming on board with us, and really creating that community atmosphere that was really key to what we do. Another important factor, as we all know in the sector, is decolonisation. The Richmond Borough Art Collection comprises of over 4,500 artworks, but they're predominantly of the 18th and 19th century. And we want to see, how can we make our collection reflect the societal issues and changes of the 21st century and be relevant to those in Richmond today. A part of our collection comprises of artifacts from the Victorian explorer Richard Burton, not the husband of Elizabeth Taylor, as I always have to tell people. And as a Victorian explorer, a lot of his writings are controversial, and also, there's a lot of only telling his story and not representing other people in it. One of the pictures I've got there on the top right is of an Islamic talisman that was originally described in our collection as being a meteorite. And so how do we reflect everything accurately and give wider scope for telling stories of people that haven't been represented previously? And then finally, the key point was volunteering diversity. We were engaging a small subset of the community in our volunteers. Richmond is one of the least diverse boroughs in London, but actually there is a lot of diversity there through the people that come through, who work, who study. So how do we tap into those people and engage with them whilst they're in the borough? And also volunteers, as with all of the work that we do in our organisations, they're integral to shaping the work that we do, feeding back and making sure that we can deliver what we promise. So how do we get that diversity of voice, not just diversity in demographics? It was also driven by our new audience development plan, which gave key targets and benchmarks for me to work towards. And just having that in mind also helped us to what we could do to shape our volunteer diversity. So I'm going to talk about some of the solutions that we covered. They're not directly linked to the challenges. So I hope you'll see the connections there, but they're not one-to-one in terms of the slides. So the first thing was really making volunteering as flexible as possible for people. Having a simple, minimal commitment that worked around their lives, rather than it being the needs of us. So tailoring it to how it could work best for them. Additionally, we also needed to streamline our processes. I'm in the process of implementing a new volunteer management system called Assemble, for those who are interested. And so it was really important that everything is done through the system, recruitment, onboarding, training, rostering, so that actually I can focus on other things, but also our volunteers can get the information they need simply, easily, and get up to speed quickly. I've also written a new training program that's really low on commitment and can be delivered over time. It doesn't have to be delivered in person. It can be done digitally and through other resources, so that volunteers can really give the commitment that they need, but still actually being up to date with everything that they need to know. And also having the support of staff, as I mentioned, having that buy-in from our senior management, but also from the team as a whole, really ensuring that they're involved in all the work that we're doing, developing it alongside volunteers, but integrating volunteers with our staff team as well. Also, another thing that I didn't mention is that we knew that we were going to have a higher turnover of volunteers. So having that flexible approach just means that we could attract more people and that volunteering would work for them. The second approach that I took was ensuring that we worked with our existing volunteers, as I said, keeping them on board throughout that journey, making sure that they had all the information that they need, clear and bite-sized communications, not overwhelming them with everything that they needed to know, and really trying to engage in their interests. So I spent a lot of time in the pandemic having conversations with our volunteers about why they joined with us, what really interested them about the work that we do, and what could we do, and making sure that that was represented in some of the development that we were doing. But also using their experiences to shape our work. For me, volunteers bring that to the table in terms of their lived experiences, their backgrounds, their skills. How could we make that work in terms of our program and make it personable and relatable to the work that we're doing? So two images that I've got up on the slide. The top one is a project that we've been doing around storytelling. So we had a traditional heritage tour program, and we looked to move away from that and embed that across all of our volunteers so that they're able to engage with the public and be able to talk about just art and heritage confidently rather than it being a set structured. So we worked with an artist called Alex Julian, and we're hopefully going to be delivering that aspect this year to our volunteers, but she really worked with them to develop that program, spent a lot of time at the gallery talking to volunteers, workshopping with them. The second picture is one of our focus groups that we held online. It's for a program called Cultural Reforesting, so looking at how we can reconnect with nature through art. And that was a really important strand of how we developed that program, getting volunteers to be engaged with artists and with the program and feeding back. So one of the outcomes of that was a manifesto that we're working to deliver and embedding those aspects of that manifesto throughout the service. Another approach we took was project-based recruitment. So we still have our traditional roles that we have and we recruit for, but we really looked as to what areas of work could we create volunteer projects that we could embed volunteering in and give them a unique and bespoke experience that they could contribute to and towards. So really making sure that their interests and passions were matched with that. But also, yeah, giving them a chance to work with staff and artists. So the picture there is from one of our recent exhibitions this year called Superforest, and the volunteers are actually creating the artworks that went on the shelves of the installation. So really, they are the artists themselves as well. So giving them an experience that they might not have got elsewhere and taking that away with them for whatever they want to do with that. But it's also not just looking at volunteering with us, it's also looking at other organisations in the borough. As the local authority, we have a responsibility to support volunteering and the ecology of that volunteering across where we work. So we launched a brand new festival in summer called the Richmond Arts and Ideas Festival, and we worked with the lead event, which was Luke Jerram's Gaia, if you're familiar with that, the big globe. We worked to support volunteers to deliver the stewarding around that, and that involved hundreds of volunteers throughout the borough, and it was a real great success. So yeah, we really use that technique, looking at the program that we have in the year or two ahead and looking at how we can make volunteering work within that. Another approach was through our marketing and recruitment. So the relationships with other organisations has been key in terms of getting the word out there, making sure that volunteers know what we have available and they can come on board with us, but also investing in recruitment through paid channels as well as free channels, but also advertising in unusual places. art is not just for people who are interested in art. It speaks to our society. It speaks to ourselves. A really great quote that I only heard yesterday was, science shows the unity, art shows the diversity of the riddle which we call the world. And I think that really speaks to the fact that art is intrinsically a part of all of us. So making sure that people don't see contemporary art as just contemporary art. It's modern art, yes, but actually there's much more to it, and they can bring so much through their experiences for what we have in terms of our visitor engagement. And also sharing our work, just not our roles. So looking at the successes, the impact that our volunteers have had, and making sure people are aware of that. It's not just about us bringing on board volunteers, it's making sure that they feel valued and appreciated. And then the final area that I really looked at was our engagement with volunteers and communicating with them directly. So I've written a brand new volunteer engagement plan that encompasses a range of opportunities for volunteers to get involved with staff, artists, and other opportunities that aren't directly related to volunteering. So there's socials. You can see the top picture there is a social we have for our 50th anniversary of the gallery with staff, artists, the local community. And it was a really nice opportunity to integrate all of that work that we've done, but also celebrate that as well. And that's really key to the volunteer engagement plan, that we share information, but it doesn't feel like volunteering, it doesn't feel like work. But also making sure that staff are a part of that, that the staff and the volunteer teams don't feel like separate entities, they feel one and the same. So all staff are aware of the volunteer strategy, they know where they contribute in their areas of work, and make sure that they interact with volunteers at any given opportunity. And the engagement plan gives lots more opportunity for staff to meet with volunteers, talk about work, talk about ideas, and it's a really great opportunity for us to build a program in that way. But also, going back to COVID, it gave us a chance to look at the ways that we shared information and interacted with volunteers. So I've done a lot of work in terms of developing a digital program, like I said, training, but also information. So the screenshot at the bottom there is a conversation that I had with my colleague Andy, who's responsible for our exhibitions, and that was put on YouTube so that all of our volunteers could watch that whenever they needed to. I've had lots of feedback, volunteers listening and watching it when they've gone for a jog or when they've gone and done their dishes or their ironing. So it doesn't feel like they're having to make a big commitment, but they're still keeping up to date with what we're doing. And so, yeah, that's a very brief overview of what we've done. And it has made a significant impact. So as you can see, for the new applicants in the last year, we've had 48% from global majority backgrounds, so not defining themselves as a white British background. So it's really changed the makeup and the demographics of our volunteer community. 72% of them are aged under 30. So we've got a really young group of people with interesting thoughts and ideas and lived experiences that they can bring to the table, but we're not excluding any ages. We've still got the traditional core of our group, 7% coming to us over 55, and in between that 21% being between 30 and 55. So really appealing to a broad age range. But not only that, in terms of retention, over a third of our volunteers have been with us for over 3 years. I didn't break down the rest of the statistics, but I would say another third of that would be between 1 and 3 years. So it's not just about bringing people on board, it's making sure they stay with us, that we're upskilling them, we're training them, they're getting the development that they need. So really great to see that this is having an impact on it, and goes in line with our audience development plan, as I mentioned. So that's the presentation. So as Vanessa mentioned earlier, what we're going to do is we're going to split out into about 6 groups. So 2 groups will cover each topic. You'll probably stray into all of the other questions as well, but we're going to look at, are there any areas of work that need development or change in your organization? It could be a project, it could be a vision or a strategy change as well. In what ways do you need to diversify your volunteering pool? It could be additional needs, it could be demographics, it could be just purely numbers. Is there anything that you need to focus on in terms of that? And then lastly, how might change support the diversification? How can you look at the strengths and your weaknesses, your opportunities and your threats, and combine them together to create that change? So yeah, we'll assign you your breakout groups and you'll shortly whiz off into those, I think. Okay. For a minute there. Great. Yeah, thanks everyone. I hope you had really valuable discussions and met some people. Who would like to feedback from group 1 and group 2 about what kind of projects or change they're looking to do?
We're 1 or 2. So I can't quite remember. I think we're 1 or 2. So we were looking at the things that we wanted to change. There was a lot of reflection about how the composition has changed. A lot, not just young people as in teenagers and students, but also people who are sort of retired early or part-time working and so on, and just the importance of offering really flexible opportunities, and obviously social opportunities and learning, such as talks, lectures and hands-on opportunities. From my own experience, I've found that offering almost like progression opportunities seems to have been very successful. So for instance, we've trained our existing visitor welcome volunteers. We've offered them the opportunity to learn how to handle the objects, and that's been much more successful than just recruiting someone who's interested in the objects themselves, because they don't always enjoy talking to people as well, as we found. Whereas the people who are already used to doing that can learn about how handling the objects. And also addressing the issue of the kind of legacy volunteers who are not necessarily matching the values of the organisation. So continuing the work to tackle that, and including one-to-one interventions. And of course the importance of management software, so if people haven't already got that, the volunteer management software really helps encapsulate those flexible opportunities. I think that's the main things. Oh, and for me, I'd like to try and do more intergenerational mentoring, because some of our older volunteers are actually telling us, oh, you know, I've got this knowledge, but I'm going to have to retire soon. Have you arranged for someone to shadow me? And I'm really pleased it's starting to come from them. That was actually feedback from our investing in volunteers process that we went through. So it was really good to have it in very bold print. That's what they wanted. Excellent. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Sheila. Anybody else from the opposite group that would like to feedback? Don't be shy. We're all friends here. No? Okay, fair enough. What about group? Hello.
Sorry, I'm from group 4. Is that what you mean? Or is it the group?
We could go to group 4.
Oh no, I'm
that's
confused.
Not a problem. Group 4.
Sorry.
No, whilst you're here, go on.
As you plan.
No, go for it. Whilst you're here, we might as well move on to group 4. That's actually working quite nicely. So you were looking at how you were looking to diversify your volunteers. But
yeah, we spent, I think, the first couple of minutes a bit confused about what we were supposed to do. So we started chatting about each of us sort of started chatting about what we're up to in terms of diversifying. But we talked around topics like I'm sorry, I always start taking notes halfway through, so bear with me. We used to talk about how being flexible can be quite hard when you kind of have like limited staff capacity, and how adapting to individuals can be quite difficult. And also there was a few of us who are proper in the midst of trying to do the work, but also there was it was really interesting to hear the stories of I can't remember your name now, is it Michelle? Who is deep in the planning phase of setting up a volunteer project, and sort of struggling with the diversity of the area that they're in and the needs of the role, dictating sort of needing access to your own car, being able to run a car. That kind of starts to exclude people as well. So we did a lot of talking about how that could become more diverse, or like open to people from more other backgrounds, if that makes sense. So yeah, lots of chat about what we're doing.
Great. No, that's the thing. The questions are there as guides. If you stray off topic, it's perfect. We just want to be thinking about diversity and how that works in our organisation. So don't worry. Anyone from group 3 at all that would like to add to that?
Yes. Well, I got nominated, let's put it that way. So again, we went a bit off piste, but we started off with, you know, there's a sort of different people coming from different areas. So, you know, County Durham is not a hugely diverse in terms of ethnic minority or things like that. But actually what we have is we do have diversity because we have deprived wards. We have, Durham University, one of the top 5 universities in the country. And then you have quite a big traveling community. So we were looking at, we sort of talked around some of that sort of thing. And then we sort of went on to, spreadsheet managing volunteers to, who uses a management system. And we were all sort of saying to the person concerned, please don't use spreadsheets. It's not good. And, you're going to tear your hair out, that sort of thing. So we talked about how actually a good volunteer management system can help with things like, training modules, because not everybody can get into on site. So if there's some things that can just be done in the comfort, we say, in the comfort of your own armchair, essential training modules, etc., and things like that. So we talked a bit around that. And then we did look at, we all were intrigued with this, what are the unusual places that you can perhaps go to try and, and do that, try and get volunteers or interest anybody. And I'd mentioned that we'd tried Wetherspoons, because when Wetherspoons in the marketplace where I am has basically, you can get from one side to the office by nipping through Wetherspoons, and it's quicker than going all the way around. And every time anybody nips through from the organisation, it's like, gosh, Wetherspoons is always full of people, whatever time of day. So I decided to approach them and see if we could put a stand up, and even if it was just talking about the project that was going on right next door to Wetherspoons and what was happening, and we, just to raise awareness of that we were looking for volunteers. So that was a bit of an unusual place. So we're all intrigued as to the unusual places that people can go. I think that was a brief summing up of our off-piece conversation.
No, that's brilliant. Thank you, Michelle. I'll hopefully be able to answer some of those unusual places if we have time. So we'll get to that. Group 5 or 6, who would like to feedback, if anything?
Hello.
Hi there, Chloe.
I'm from Group 5, and so we were talking about how you might use change to support diversification. A lot of the topic that really came up was intergenerational teams, because we were thinking about how to diversify the team without leaving particularly the older generation behind, because there's a lot of focus on recruiting younger people into volunteering, but also there's been a lot of evidence about volunteering being good for older generation, for aged people and their health. So one of the things that we came up was, well, one of us actually mentioned it experience-wise, was putting out specific role descriptions helps with recruiting and retaining volunteers. And by putting a diverse range of different roles, that helps you get more diverse volunteers. And they also said that from experience, the flexibility comes in where people get in for one role, but then they learn about other roles and opportunities within the service, and then they move across the teams as well.
Great. Yeah, that's some really lovely ideas there. Thank you. Anybody else from the other group?
I'm from Group 6. I'm happy to say a couple of words, but please, rest of the group, if you want to jump in, do it. But actually, I think we got more or less to the same or something similar conclusion that Group 5 came to. Mainly our conversation was very much about how key it is to have several roles or opportunities, experiences to offer in order to open conversations with different audiences and being able to offer more than one role, and how key are the roles in order to attract these audiences. So it was very much about that. We had a lot of conversations about how to attract pre-existing community groups that can come and experience what we can offer in terms of organizations. We talked about how diversity is tough in different ways. For example, for my organization, we mainly have young students, university and MA students, as we are based in North London, and we are a contemporary art venue, whereas for other organizations, it's very much the opposite. So they need more young people. And so we were discussing how to attract, how to organize open morning for universities or schools and show them what we do if you want to attract young students. So there was a lot about that. And we were very interested about these unusual places where to advertise. So yeah, we're back to that.
Great. Thank you, Stefania. Love your work as well. We need to come down and visit you at some point. So definitely we'll be doing that. Right, yeah, well, if nothing else, I will go to some of the questions. Everybody seems to be interested in these unusual places. I've got a long list of them, but one that comes to mind that I'd like to talk about is we are working on a program around play. And so one of the things that I've done is to tap into the marketing that we've done for that and approach play groups. So looking at parents who can volunteer. Now, obviously, their time is limited to drop-offs and pickups, but because of the way that our roles, we make it flexible, that can work for them. So, and from that, looking to see if they have any siblings who are maybe studying at university. Unfortunately, at the moment, we don't offer under 18s volunteering positions, but we're hoping to do that in future. So yeah, just seeing whether they've got any interests that they could signpost into family and friends. Also, I mentioned our cultural reforesting program. That's interdisciplinary, so it's arts, science, other creative areas of work. So I've really been tapping into the science aspect of that. So going to universities and colleges and speaking to students who are studying science, STEM, and really helping them look at how arts can facilitate their career development. So yeah, it's not just looking at arts as being the creative sector. There's so many more ways of doing it. If you're interested, more than happy to have a chat. But yeah, hopefully that goes a little bit into satiating your interests. But yeah, like I say, lots more that we can talk about in future. Just going through some of the questions, sorry. Just wondering, how do you integrate new volunteers with the existing volunteers? Says, oh, I don't know how to pronounce your name, Sharon. So as I said, the engagement plan that I've developed really looks at how we can support existing volunteers or new volunteers with existing volunteers. One of the things I'm developing at the moment is a buddying program that will allow existing volunteers to share their knowledge. I think that was mentioned in one of the groups as well, feeding back. So that's really key, but also involving them in our induction process. So having volunteers who are familiar with the service to present on areas of the work that we do, so that they've got a familiar face, and we try and pair that up with people who might be doing similar roles if possible, so that they know that there's someone they could come talk to and they can rely on their experiences. Yeah, as well as our social activities, that's a really good way just to get people to know each other. Michelle asks, are volunteers the added value or integral? It depends on the area of work. Obviously, we ensure best practice throughout all points. We're not taking away any staff roles, because obviously that's not what we want to do. We want to make sure that volunteers are doing their time freely and getting something out of it. So all of the projects that we work on, all of the roles that we develop, I work with the rest of the staff team to analyse that and make sure that we're not skirting practice. So in some respects they are integral. For example, we couldn't open the gallery fully without volunteers, but we do have a front of house team that look after the day-to-day operations. So we make sure that our roles are well defined, the clear objectives. So yeah, that's really important, but they are added value as well, both, I would say. And last question, sorry, we're coming to the end of the session. Steph asked, did you manage to retain your previous volunteers from before the change to now? I would say on the whole, yes. It was a very, very small number of people who weren't comfortable with contemporary art. But realistically, I would say that was maybe 2 people out of, at that point in time, it was about 85 people. So a really small number that didn't get on board with what we were doing. I think most of the change was through the pandemic and people reevaluating how they wanted to spend their time. I'm sorry I can't answer all the rest of the questions, but Vanessa has made a note of them. She's going to send them through to me, and I'm going to make some notes that will be shared out with all the rest of the slideshow and everything else. But thank you so much for all your time. And yeah, thank you for joining today.